There have been too many scandals lately, from the PDS scandal to Ameri scandal to the cathedral scandal. Just too many, and it's extremely embarrassing to read these things every day. But I thank Ghanaians for their patience. This one has ensured that Ghana has could be stable and to be peaceful. And I pray that Ghanaians continue to be patient and believe in the democratic process. And more recently, we are hearing about something called Agyapadea. And sadly, my company is also mentioned in that book. My small strategic African security is also mentioned in that book. I find it difficult to believe that that was a genuine document. But of course, certain things that we go through give us thoughts to the contrary. I recall that in 2019 thereabout, we received a letter for us to sign, pre-written in our name, to sign to resign from the group of companies that advise government on its bond issues. That came as a shock. Another time, we had a commercial paper outstanding with a state-owned financial institution that had not matured. Suddenly, we had debt collectors at our door demanding repayment of money that had not matured. So when I reflect on some of these things, then I begin to wonder. And only about 2 months ago, Yoko was at a small factory that we own in Tema, Pioneer Kitchenware. We're just majority share owners of a company that is going through hard times, closed down. We're thinking of reviving it. And Yoko was there because PKL allegedly was owing rates to Tema Development Corporation. And you wonder, what did Yoko have to do with indebtedness of a small company to, So when you look at all of these things, then you begin to rethink about your view of Agyapadea. But again, you just reminded me about my involvement in the setting up of data bank. So that makes it even more surprising that after helping to found that company, I could also be a target. Anyway, but a lot of scandals are part of the problems that have drawn our country back. And these scandals have become possible because in Ghana now there is so little respect for the truth. Truth, freedom, and justice are all principles that are currently imperiled. It's difficult to know when you are hearing the truth and when you are hearing otherwise. I just read today that even the ownership of the newly commissioned gold refinery is being disputed. So the lack of truth, the lack of transparency, lack of accountability are all part of the problems of this country. Those have made corruption possible. If you have to fight for our development, we have to deal with corruption. We have to deal with accountability. We have to deal with the truth. There is always only one truth. Your Excellency, again, so much is politicized in our country. so much is politicized. Development is politicized. Even our football sometimes is politicized. Whether a community voted for the president or not, they also deserve development. Personally, I think opposition is what makes victory sweet. So political leaders must not hate their opponents. After all, you've won. You have to be very magnanimous to those you've defeated and accept everybody as part of this country and therefore deserving of whatever this country has to offer. But so much is politicized in this country. There were many projects that we tried to undertake that had possibilities of waivers, and you find it difficult to get some of those waivers, particularly for manufacturing plant and equipment. But let me tell you the interesting about football. You know, House of Folk is a club I control. We're in Africa with our counterparts. Our counterparts are offered money by government who are not giving money. That is the kind of politicization that is not good for this country. Pettiness that's not for this country. And you recall recently, for the first time, when there was a Republic Cup tournament, a team was brought from Cote d'Ivoire to come and play our counterparts, quite against what has been the norm. So when I talk politicization of development, possession of issues, these are the kind of things I'm talking about. Those don't augur well for national cohesion and the unity that we need to develop our country. And those are things that we all have to work together to fight. I can continue with the fact that the private sector does not enjoy the honest support that it deserves. And that also affects our development. Many policies benefit cronies, benefits relatives, benefits friends, to the exclusion of others. That is not fair. Whether we belong to party A or party B, we are all the same people. We all deserve whatever the nation has to offer. And I think a fair-minded leader, a leader who wants to ensure national unity and cohesion, should aim at that, to ensure that everybody can have fair opportunity. So we don't come with virtually predatory policies that are targeted to benefit a few people. We heard about how PDS was touted as a, structured to ensure majority Ghanaian ownership, only for us to realize that those were special, Ghanaians who were going to enjoy that majority. That is not the kind of development strategy that we need in this country. If we have to approach private sector fairly and for it to make development possible, we must be very, very even-handed and see that we all Ghanaians to start with. So cronyism has not been good for our country, and I'll ask that anybody who emerges as leader of this country tries to be a president for all, not a president for just a section of the country. Again, as I said, opposition is what makes victory sweet, and sometimes you get a lot more guidance from those who oppose you than from those who support you. So let's value our opponent. Mismanagement, our fiscal policy. We see so much reckless borrowing. We talked about it already. Very reckless borrowing, reckless decisions, reckless spending, wasteful spending. We all recall how abruptly the road tolls were removed just one day without much. Yeah. We saw how road tolls were taken away abruptly, and we now think of bringing them back. That is massive loss to the state. All the revenues that would have been collected over the period. In fact, many of us at that time thought the road tolls were even too low. Little did we think that the government would have thought that they were necessary altogether when we needed so much money, when we couldn't pay our NAPCO employees, we couldn't pay our contractors, and etc. So mismanagement has been part of our problem as well. A lot of knee-jerk decisions, a lot of politically biased or influenced decisions, those have not been good for our country. And if you recall when Speaker Bagbin was here in November or December of 2021 when I spoke, I did say at that time that if Ghana was a company, Ghana would have filed for bankruptcy. That was like 1 full year before it finally happened in 2022, when by trying to renegotiate our debts, seek haircuts, and etc., appeal to the IFC, we effectively filed for bankruptcy. And I did say at the end of last year also that Bank of Ghana was technically bankrupt. Little did I know that they were indeed going to be asking for recapitalization. So we have not done very well in the management of our economy. So CD depletion is still very high, inflation rate is still very high, and there is still massive unemployment, particularly among our youth. So these are some of the challenges that will confront our new or our next leader. And these are things that you as a prospective leader, Your Excellency, must be preparing for. Very briefly, let me also talk about the bastardization of most of our institutions. Most of them have become politicized, even chieftaincy institution, the judiciary, the security agencies, just name them. They have lost their independence and therefore their ability to safeguard our democracy as required of them in our constitution. Those things, again, I mean, it's all in our interest to ensure that the foundation of our country and its democracy remain very strong. And I think a selfless leader should aim at ensuring that all institutions of state are very strong and are capable of doing their work. Only then can we sustain our democracy, our peace, our stability, and our progress. Your Excellency, all of these things require leadership. I think what we have lacked most of the time in our country and most of Africa is leadership. Leadership that is genuinely committed to the people, committed to the cause of development. Leaders that see themselves as servants as opposed to lords of the people. And I think these are some of the difficulties, that have confronted our development over the years. Your Excellency, all of this mean that, as I said earlier, our people are truly suffering. They are suffering the consequences of lack of development, lack of progress. The consequences of mismanagement have become burdens on our people. And these are all threats to our stability. If we have to be stable, if we have to guarantee our future peace, we must ensure that the majority of the people at least are happy. People who are happy value their lives and are less likely to resort to violence. That is why prosperity is an important pursuit by most government agencies as a way of ensuring happiness and therefore peace. So, Excellency, we are facing a lot of threats, but I believe that we can turn it around. I'm an optimist, maybe a slave to optimism. I believe that we can turn around our fortunes, but it will require, among others, that we rededicate ourselves to the values that are enshrined in our national pledge, in our national anthem, and also in our 1992 Constitution. Those values can ensure that we come together as one people and work honestly towards the development of our country. Those values ensure that we work together in honesty to build a great country. Those values will allow us to leverage our natural resource endowments, agricultural resource endowments, leverage technology, leverage private sector capacity to generate the growth that will bring the development that we need, to bring the financial stability that we want to see, to strengthen the city, and also to create employment for the masses of our people. So I believe all of this is possible. Committing to the values in our anthem, our pledge, and our constitution, to leverage the potentials that our country has in agriculture, the mineral sector, and etc., to industrialize and therefore create growth, generate employment, stabilize the financial markets, stabilize the city, and ensure decent living standards of our people. But as I said, it will require, among others, very importantly, great leadership. Leadership that respects its commitment to people, its obligation to the people. Leadership that is humble. Leadership that is not vindictive. Leadership that is honest. That is what we need, Your Excellency. With that kind of leadership, we can pursue the honest planning that we need to leverage our resource endowments to generate the required growth and also development and employment for our people. But it will also require, as you yourself have suggested previously, a good constitution. We have all accepted that our constitution has outlived its usefulness. And I'm happy that you have committed yourself to continuing the work that had been started previously to review the constitution, amend it, and ensure that it's in tune with our development requirements. I think the constitution requires massive amendment if it's supposed to help us develop. And I think that's also one of the stumbling blocks in our development. Finally, very briefly on the forthcoming elections. I believe the forthcoming elections is not just about His Excellency Mahama or His Excellency Baumia or any other candidate. It's really about the future of our country. The future of our country is at stake. So we have to examine carefully our needs and then decide accordingly. These coming elections will be very, very seminal indeed. It will define the way forward for our country. And I think we should all work hard towards ensuring that it is free and fair. The future is at stake. Let's ensure that we all work together to have a free and fair election, the result of which will give us the candidate that we want. Let us all come together as one people. Let us not be divided on the basis of tribe or political affiliation when it comes to matters of our development. So let us come together to defend our democracy. Let's come together to defend the truth. Let's come together to ensure that our political leaders do what is right for us. Do what is right for our country. It doesn't matter whether you're from the north, the south, the east, or the west. Whether you're a Dagomba, a Hausa, and every Ashanti, it does not matter. We all have only one country called Ghana. And we need to stand together to defend that country and to ensure that we cannot be taken for granted by our leaders. So I ask that we all pledge to defend our country. We all pledge commitment to our constitution. And we all uphold the values that are enshrined in our constitution, the values that are embodied in our national pledge and in our national anthem. Only then can we play our part as citizens, not spectators. Only then can we have our voices heard by our leaders, and only then can we be part of the definition of the future of our country. And I want to ask that the EC, that commission, commits itself to doing its best for our country to ensure that we have a free and a fair election, so that the peace that has defined us as Ghanaians over the years, our enviable, peaceful environment, can be sustained into the future, because that is very important for our development. Your Excellency, I want to thank you once again for coming. Second time in just a few days.